Now, we all know that in order to be good with our wedges, we have to have good distance control. So I'm going to share with you a couple things about practice and a couple techniques that you can do that are going to definitely help you do that. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the practice. Now, I would suggest, this is not possible for me today because I'm at the driving range, but if at all possible, you can practice your wedge play with the types of golf balls that you use. That would be highly recommended. So maybe you can find an open field or maybe a certain spot on the golf course where you can actually hit the wedge shots with the type of balls that you play with. That would really be helpful because let's face it, I've got a range ball here. It's not going to react and go the same distance as the Pro Vs that I typically play with. So that would be tip number one and just kind of generally how you practice. The second tip I want to give you is that you should practice with something that provides some feedback for you. So I like to use my Swing Caddie. It's very inexpensive. It tells me exactly how far the golf ball goes so that when I'm hitting shots, I'm getting some actual feedback. Because as I hit a shot out onto the range, I mean, did that go 75 yards or 80 yards or how far did it go? I need to know that because we all know basic math. Every 5 yards is 15 feet. Well, if I've got a 3-footer versus an 18-footer for a putt, totally different ball game. So that would be tip number two. Try to use something that provides some feedback if at all possible. The third tip I want to give you, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the technique. And I didn't mention this earlier, but if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe to our channel, or maybe you disagree or agree, leave a comment, or maybe you've got a suggestion that you've used to help your wedge play. Put it in there. I do my best to respond to all those, and we love getting the dialogue going back and forth. So the third tip I want to give you is that I would suggest that you practice trying to hit the ball the same distance each time. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I think it's best to say, hey, I'm going to work on a 50-yard shot, a 75-yard shot, and a 100-yard shot for sake of discussion. 3 different distances, all within 100 yards or lower. I don't think you should go practice and say, well, I'm going to try to hit it 60, and I'm going to try to hit it 68 yards, and I'm going to try to hit it 83 yards. It's just going to be impossible to replicate. So my suggestion would be maybe 50, 75, and 100. That would be a good place to start. So those are 3 tips in how to practice. Now, let's talk about the technique. So first of all, I'm just going to hit a shot. I got my range. This is my old wedge. I've had this for years. It's pretty beat up, but it's a trusty old one. I like it. It's a 58 degree Titleist Volkey. I love their wedges. Let me just hit a shot. Get a distance.
76 yards.
Okay, 76 yards, because 75 yards is one of my favorite distances that I like to hit. So how do I replicate that each time? Well, the first tip I want to give you is you can control the length that the ball travels, the distance with the length of the swing. So when I hit my 75-yard shot, in my length of swing, what I'm trying to do here is I want to swing it so my left arm, my lead arm, is parallel to the ground, and when I finish, my right arm is parallel to the ground. So that would be the first tip I can give you. If you want to vary the distance that the ball travels, vary the length of your swing. And I think the first one to start with, let me see if I can replicate that again. I want to put myself on the button here, see if I can do it. Left arm parallel, right arm parallel. Should be pretty close to 75.
72 yards.
72, not bad. I'll take that. That's only 3 yards off there. So that would be tip number one. I'd be curious if anybody else, if you have something similar that you do. Do you control the length of your swing with the distance that the ball travels with the length of your swing? Let me hear from you on that. Tip number one. All right. Tip number two is the speed of the swing. Now this one can be a little bit more challenging. But if I pick up the rotation a little bit, I can hit the golf ball a little further. Now this is harder one, but for some of you expert players out there, you might be able to do this. So let me see if I can do it. Once again, I got my 58. I'm going to go left arm parallel, right arm parallel, but I'm going to pick up the pace, and I should get something that's a little bit further. Let's see what I get. Felt a little quicker.
85 yards.
Okay, 85 yards. Okay, that's about what I would expect. About 10 yards difference. I tried to keep the length the same. Just try to pick up the pace. So that would be tip number two. I think, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts. Maybe leave a comment there. I think that's the hardest one to do, but maybe you find different. The third one, and I think this is one that's overlooked a lot, and I'm going to give you an actual drill for this, and that is in delivering a consistent loft to the golf ball. Now, you might be thinking, Todd, what are you talking about? What do you mean by that? Well, this has got 58 degrees of loft, right? But I can change that loft multiple ways. Now, we've talked a lot about this in our chipping. If you've seen any of our chipping videos, we talked a lot about the 3 most common mistakes amateurs make, which that video is blowing up. It's over 1 million views. Okay, we talk a lot about effective loft, effective bounce, but same thing happens with the wedge play. So when I get set in here, I've got 58 degrees, right? Well, if I have my hands just equal with the ball, that's what I've got, 58. But if I move it a little bit in front, maybe I've got 54. I go a little further, maybe I've got 50. If I went way in front, maybe I've got 40. I don't know. But I'm definitely changing that. So the third tip I want to give you is set that angle and keep it the same. Now here's how I would practice that. I like the hands just ever so slightly in front of the ball. So I'm going to set in here, move the handle slightly in front, and I'm just going to, that creates a left wrist position, a left wrist angle. And I'm just going to rotate and try to keep that the same. Because if I can do this through the strike, then I maintain the consistent loft on the face. If I cup it, I'm going to add loft. All right, so let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to get set in here. Let me see if I can set the angle. See if I can hit that 75-yard shot. Felt pretty good. Might be a little short.
69.
Yeah, 69 yards. Okay, a little short on that. Now, let me exaggerate that. So this time when I come through, I'm going to cup it a little bit. Now, I'm not recommending you do that, but I just want to make the point. I'm going to set it, and when I come through, I'm going to cup it a little bit. Hit behind it.
55.
I mean, way shorter. Now, obviously, I exaggerated that just to make the point there, but you can see that there. So that would be tip number 3. Create a consistent left wrist or lead wrist angle so you maintain consistent loft on the face. So let's do a recap here. And as I said earlier, if you haven't subscribed, I hope you do. I hope you like the information we're putting out there. We got tons of great videos on putting, driving, chipping, you name it. And I love the comments. I love the comments when people comment and they say, hey, this is what worked for me, or Todd, you don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. We like to hear from all of you. So here's the tips. Number 1, when you're practicing, if you can use the same balls you use when you play, do that. Try to have a device or something that gives you some feedback in terms of how far the golf ball is going, because ultimately, that's what makes a good wedge player, the ability to create consistent distances. All right. Number 3, I think, is practicing the same distances. 50, 75, and 100 every single time. Now the tips in terms of technique, okay, that we've talked about is 1 is length of swing, right? Number 2 that we talked about is speed, the rotation speed. That's a little bit harder, I think, but maybe you think different. Let me know if you do. And then, of course, number 3 is the consistent lead wrist angle. So hopefully that makes sense, but to wrap it up, be sure to subscribe, be sure to comment, and we love hearing from you. And if you want more good information, be sure to follow us on our channel or also our website at usgolftv.com.